Hi, everybody. This is Jon Toker from Biz Insider. I have another special guest here with me today, Bertrand Couvrette from AutoAlert. Hey, Bertrand, how are you doing today?
Hey, John, good yourself?
Good, thank you very much.
Happy
Finally,
to be here.
we're having our conversation. It's been we've been planning this for last couple of months now, and finally this came together. So why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us who Bertrand Couvrette is and what kind of good information are we going to be talking today, and how could that be beneficial to the dealerships out there?
Well, you know what, John, I'm happy to be on your podcast finally. Like you said, it's been a couple of months of us talking about your podcast and having great conversations. Finally, the agenda is kind of lined up, so I'm happy to be here this morning. Quick about myself, information about myself. I'm a third generation car guy. Grew up in the car business. My great uncle had a Ford dealership in the 60s in Montreal. My dad's first job was working for him at the dealership. My dad then worked for the Ontario equivalent of Speedy Auto Glass for 15 years in Quebec, which was called Gilles until it was sold. And then he bought a small Chrysler dealership in Lachine here in Montreal on the island. So when I was like 14 or 15 years old, started working there in the summer, washing cars, sweeping the floors, moving cars in the lot on the back, learning how to drive. And I've been in the auto business forever. After that, I had a good run being a service or fixed ops manager in a dealership at my dad's dealership. And then after that, for someone you know very well now, for John Raymond at AutoStrass in Montreal. And this is going to age me a little bit, but it was back when the dealership had Audi, Volkswagen, and Porsche in the same store under the same roof. So we had a big shop in the back. We were a couple of guys running the shop together for each brand, and had a blast working there. Learned a lot about, the bigger side of a car dealership, the volume size. Learned a lot about retention while I was there. And then when John sold the dealership, I went ahead and started working for Aspen Marketing, and did that for 10 years. And Aspen Marketing was a great extension for me because it was all about service retention. It was a product that I had used back at my days at AutoStrass. Sold that across Quebec for 10 or 11 years almost. And then in 2018 came to AutoAlert. I left for a year, came back, but now I've been back with AutoAlert as a vice president of sales. And the progression in my career has been interesting, where it's always related to two things, which is retention, loyalty, because of the family background in the business and all the stuff I learned from my dad, kicking me in the butt and teaching me how to serve customers, and that whole retention service side, and then bringing it into the data, right, which is what we want to talk about today. Which, thinking back, you kind of realize that back in the day, we were the data mining tools, right? Whoever was good enough at looking at different reports was the one that came up with the most kind of relevant direction for say a service department or for a service campaign. And so I did that for years at Epsilon, pulling a database, looking at the database, selecting customers for a campaign. So when you look back at it, it's always been about loyalty, retention. It's always been about the right audience, the right message, delivering to dealers. And so at AutoAlert, it's kind of the culmination of all that, because 20 years ago this year, we started data mining for automotive dealers when everybody else was kind of paying attention to the other side of, right, which is learning how to manage a customer, right? And so over the past 20 years, AutoAlert's kind of developed in the mecca of data mining, and that's very appealing to me, because now I can combine my background and the know-how and the tools that AutoAlert has to really deliver to dealers what I think is what I would want to be having as far as conversations with clients, and also what I would want as far as delivering as far as tools, whether it's mine or others. You want to make sure as a dealer that you're delivering the top quality tools to your employees so that they feel engaged in those tasks that they have to do in those tools, right? If they don't see the value, they'll never happen, right? So it's important as dealers to know what those tools are, figure out the right ones. And as far as, having right conversations about interacting with your database, interacting with your customers at the right time, all that stuff is the world I live in right now, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for giving detailed information about your background. It's amazing to know where you came from and what kind of experience level you have. And I think this is really good for our audience to know this information about you. And then we got some of your followers, Sean, Andre Martin, and Dominic.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
saying good stuff about
Oh,
you,
great
and
guys.
they
Yeah,
love
yeah.
you. And but one important thing is this: I think you're a type of person that you can. You're like a type of person that can sell stuff that you completely believe in and you have the knowledge of. And I think that's where that auto alert relationship started. My understanding, because you're saying that you learned the importance of the database mining, customer relationship, best practices of following up with that loyalty. That grows your business a lot. And now you're the vice president of sales of a database mining company and customer relationship management tool, which is called
Right.
AutoAlert.
Right.
So
And the last 15 years of my career have been all about that. And because Epsilon is also a huge data consumer as a company, and helps dealers in many different ways, as does AutoAlert. But the idea here is, we've learned about technology over the last 20 years as dealers. Then the data came along, right? It's all about big data today. But what's important over the next 5 to 7 years is that data needs to become actionable, right? So we have all of this data, and the platforms are all growing to consume it. And then it's, what do we do with it, right? Something needs to happen. The car's not going to sell itself because you have good data. So there needs to be that baton passing, right, to either a person or a department, or so the data needs to be actionable, right? And so years ago it was actionable because it was there. So we would tell someone, hey, call this person because he's had the car for 2 years and wish him a happy birthday. And you would do that in the hopes of next call at 36 months, maybe you would actually be able to sell them a car, right? Today, employees don't want to do that, right? They don't see the value in that because it's not the experience they're having elsewhere, right? When you go on Netflix and it says, hey, you should watch this movie, and it turns out to be exactly the movie you want to be watching, right? You're happy with the movie you watched after watching it. That's consuming data, but making it actionable, right? And I think that's where dealers need to go, and that's what they need to be looking at right now, because they've all kind of they all know and utilize CRMs. They all know and utilize different tools to manage their leads, their inbound, their existing customers, their conquest customers. Now it's all about, what are you going to do with it, right? And that can be very overwhelming as well. So you got to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right tools to do the right things with that data.
So I before we jump into details of like benefits of database mining, what's the modern day of database mining, what's the best practices and all that good information, I just like to ask you two important questions. One is what is actually auto alert? Like I'm sure a lot of people know what it is, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know what it is, right? Because I know it's a huge big tool in the US. Canada is pretty popular too. It's getting really popular in the last 3 to 4 years, I think. Could you explain what auto alert is exactly?
Yeah, and I don't want to, in a nutshell, what AutoAlert does is it takes different levels of data, and kind of makes it all make sense to the dealer, puts it forward, and makes it actionable, right? So we obviously have a platform where we kind of lay out that data under certain identifiers or alerts, if you will, and then turn those alerts into workflows, turn those workflows into tasks or actions that happen towards a customer and towards maintaining that relationship. And essentially what's important here is that, all the dealerships have a database. I think it's important today, not just to interact with it, which is what we've been doing for, the past 10, 15 years in CRMs, but it's also interacting with it at the right moment in time as well, because that's when the data comes in. Right? It used to be, oh, I'm going to get last month's report of, sales. Now it's, I have my sales in real time here, right? So dealerships are now able to consume that data with tools and react to it right away. And then those data sets turn actions into more relevant actions on the floor, right? At the dealership level. So what AutoAlert is all about is identifying who you can sell a vehicle to, who you can buy a vehicle from, who you can sell F&I product to, who you can bring in for service or recalls. But it's all about getting that right message to the right customer at the right time. And that's a used phrase. But at the end of the day, if I can tell you when you need a warranty because you're going to run out and you've just come in and we saw that you had a claim, but it's not, you got 6 months left on your warranty. Maybe we're going to set out a task and say, hey, the F&I should call this customer and say, thank you for coming in the other day. We're happy we covered you, right? Do you plan on keeping your car? Because you're going to run out in 6 months, right? And have that conversation. If the customer wants to keep his car, sell him a warranty. If he wants to not keep his car, sell him a car, right? So it's turning live and real-time data into actionable, meaningful conversations at the dealership level.
But Bertrand, can't somebody do this manually? Just go into their DMS system and then match that information with that and like spend 25 minutes in each customer to trying to get that data? Why should they have an AutoAlert?
Well, again, I'm not here to sell AutoAlert, but it's all about, it's funny because when we explain what we do to a dealership who's never seen it before, most of the time they have 5 or 6 files on their desk from customers that are asking them, can I change my car? Right? That kind of summarizes it, right? That's what we do in a click, right? That's what we do in real time.
How long it takes to pull that information? Just because I'm like an operational guy, right? I'm a car
It doesn't
guy.
take any time to pull it because it's in real time, John. So that the dealerships log in, they see the alert, they see the comparisons of the side-by-sides that we do for the customer. So what he's driving, what he could be driving, what the payment looks like. And then we tell those dealerships that have AutoAlert who can change, who's in a position to change, right? It's that low-lying fruit. But it's also a lot more than that, right? But the heart of it is that, right? The heart of it is actionable data at the right moment, whether it's for a car sale, for a car purchase, or a buyback, or for an extended warranty because your warranty is running out, or because you're gonna bust your lease mileage, right? It's all about identifying relevant conversations, and then at the dealership level, well, some of that is done by your salespeople. Some dealerships have BDCs. Some of it is automated, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can build an ecosystem around what happens in a certain situation in a very simple way, right? So this happens, we put a bunch of things around it that will follow up and make sure that gets sold to or get followed up on, and a lead turns into a sale, right?
Yeah, makes complete sense to me. I'm all about automation, streamlining processes, make sure
That's
that
it.
even someone with no experience in this business can come in and start working right away and start selling cars and making money without putting lots of effort. I'm all about that. So you're speaking to my, it's a singing to my ears, right? So here's the next question. We keep talking about dealers, dealers, dealers. Can AutoAlert be utilized by car manufacturers itself? Can like ABC Motors, can like a car company can utilize your tool? Like, can you provide any kind of service for them at
Well,
all? Or
everything is obviously done through the dealerships, right? Because it's a dealership level tool. We do have national relationships with manufacturers like Ford, where we go beyond that, where we have integrations to their systems to make our tool more robust and make our tool even more precise for the Ford dealers, right? So things like having access to some of their price building and model building makes us more accurate, right? So we have these really solid integrations that we can have with OEMs. But on other levels, we can also, run recall programs through our tool for the OEMs. We can run, equity identifiers for OEMs. But at the end
what do
of
you
the
mean
day,
equity
it always
identifier?
comes
Could you
down
explain
to
to that?
it always comes down to being at the dealer, though, right? It's about what's the dealer going to do with the identifier that we put forward, right?
What do you mean by equity identifier? What's that?
Well, and equity is the wrong term, but what I'm saying, John, is that whoever's in a position to change is what we identify, right? Some of
On
those
OEM
people are
level?
in
Like
equity
you can do that in
position.
OEM level? Like from that
No,
top?
no, because with Ford, we help them with their incentives. We help them with their loyalty offers that they have for their customers, help them target those people better. So that's what we can do with a high level integration on an OEM program, right? Because it takes a lot of interaction between an OEM and our platform to build something that robust, right? So we have that with Ford, and it's great. But at the end of the day, we can support any OEM in, let's say a certain OEM has pull ahead tags or has identifiers on special loyalties. We can consume those into our platform and make those easy to be actionable at the dealer level, right? So certain dealer has AutoAlert. You were with Honda, right? So we had the tags with Honda. We would incorporate with Honda, so the dealer can go in AutoAlert to his OEM list, but also have the AutoAlert data set back to that customer, right? So it gives him more information and targets his actions even better. So if he gets 200 names from Honda, we can identify the 75 that he should talk to first, right? Yeah. So that's what we can help OEMs with. And it all comes from wanting to support their dealers better, right? At the end of the day, making our platform.
I just can't share the secrets of Honda.
No, and again, the dealers know these lists, right? That Chrysler has them, Ford has them, GM has them, everybody that has them. They just all call them something different, right? So, but we help the OEMs and consume that and help the dealers maximize actions on those. And for us, those are easy things to do because of the nature of the platform and how collaborative it is with every OEM.
Bertrand, look, we have amazing comments from Sean. Says, completely agree. Revenue generating, relevant customer contact through actionable data. And John
Sean's a great guy. You know what? Him and I have great conversations like you and I do. And then we had, we saw each other at NADA. We've known each other for a couple of years, and we help Sean with some of his dealers that have AutoAlert. Him and I have, I've brought him in to demos with my team to give him some insights on how he can better serve his dealers. And that's the kind of thing we do as well, right? We know the ecosystem at the dealer level, and we know that they have experts like Sean that get hired to maximize their BDC operations. Well, first thing we do as a partner to dealers is we'll jump on that and make sure Sean is blown away by everything he can do. And then whatever he wants to help and apply at his dealer level, you're talking about processes, right? It's all about process. Whatever process he decides he wants to implement for his clients, we have account management that helps him support those customers as well, right? So it's a great collaboration on, any department with these guys is a lot of fun.
Sean is like the BDC magician, right? Like he's so
the
good with that BDC stuff.
Not to give him a plug, but yeah, he's he knows his BDC stuff, and he actually, Sean actually turned me down when I was with Epsilon for Delary, and it was a bullet for me to take, and so I'm happy we get to work together today because he's turned his knowledge into his business and his brand, and I know he's having a lot of fun doing it.
I love this, tons of the talent out there in Canada that,
Absolutely
got really good stuff going on. Which
is and like he works with dealers in the US, dealers in Canada, and that's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we talk about AutoAlert, great stuff. So let's extract some great data from your all these years of experience that accumulated over the years. So let's learn some secrets from you. What do you mean? What's the most important thing in database mining, would you say, based on your previous years of experience? Could you explain that? Some best practices?
Well, I think there's a few things. I think as dealers, because obviously my vision is always what can we tell the dealers or what can we suggest and put in front of dealers. I think as a dealer, at the base, you have to go above and beyond what's naturally in front of you, right? So it's easy to say, I'm going to send out 1,500 communications or whatever, right? Emails, or invite 1,500 people to a sales event. And I'm going to take everybody between this year make model to this year make model last visit date. Oh, I got 1,500 people and I'm putting those people in an event, right? Most dealers do a bit more than that, right? But there's the easy way and then there's the extra step, right? So a best practice to me is to always, the dealers I see perform best are the ones that always want to add a layer, right? So how can I equip myself to know how to do what I need to do better, right? And so as a best practice, I would challenge myself as a dealership to make sure that I'm looking at all the tools that are out there so that I can perform better with the data that I have and the marketing that I want to put out there and the car sales and the service, the F&I products. What can I do to maximize all of that? Right. So that's my kind of first go-to. The other one is it's all about relevance, right? And what used to be simple to maintain or simpler to maintain, right? Or a more impressionable customer of 15 years ago when, oh, wow, he actually called me for my birthday, right? Nobody does that, right? Whereas today, even a very close, certain type of close follow-up is sometimes even put aside by clients, right? So I think we have to be relevant and we also have to fight hard to maintain that relationship within the technology that's available, right? So I learned when I was, in my early 20s working for my father, person to person, how to develop loyalty, right? And that person to person loyalty would come into repeat visits because there wasn't really, there was kind of ways of following up with customers, but, we were a small store and we didn't really do any retention, right? We didn't do any service follow-ups and stuff. I learned from my dad is serve them right every time they come in and serve them honestly and they'll come back, right? That was his retention. This is years ago, right? Today, you can take it, all of that, and we need to bring that human side back into the relationship because now we can. And how can we do that? Well, we can do it by having relevant conversations with our clients. So if I'm going to give you $50,000 or $20,000 or $10,000 for a car and give you a payment of mine every month, I expect you to know things about me today. And that's what customers are expecting, right? So the next best practice is to be relevant, right? Make sure that whenever you're communicating with a client, it makes sense to communicate with that client. Don't call someone for an extended warranty if he's got an extended warranty, right? Don't call someone to change his truck if he's so upside down that he can't change his truck. You're going to upset him. You're going to lose him because you should know these things, right? And that's my other big best practice because if you do that and if you master that, you'll have loyalty and retention on your customer side, but you'll also be putting actionable tasks on your staff. And you'll also be putting out marketing to support that staff that's more relevant to them, right? Because you're marketing to the right customer to help them in their selling process, right? So there's not a salesman in the world who enjoys getting an up in it during an event and turns out that the customer is so far upside down that he can't sign for a car, right? He's going to get mad at who? At whoever did the event, right? So we got to be smarter than that. And we got to be relevant. But for our employees as well, for the staff that works for us, we got to make sure that their opportunities are relevant when they're in front of them, right? So that also builds loyalty and retention on the employee side. And I think that's a big challenge for dealers. And I think the stronger dealers pivot quicker and maintain a stronger relationship with their employees because they put the right tools in front of them. So that's my other best practice is challenge yourself to put the best and most performing and kind of the most, employee and customer centric tools in front of your staff.
So, but basically, what you're saying is don't do the shotgun approach and just target every single person you can and roll the dice and take your chances, see what happens. So you
Yeah,
said
and you
don't
know
do
what?
that.
One of the things I love is I always learn great expressions from my travels to the U.S. and across Canada, and the spray and pray is a great kind of expression that my buddies in Kansas City at AutoAlert use. But and I learned it in the first day of my training with them in 2018, and it makes complete sense. You don't want to do spray and pray, right? And it's exactly that. Why would you send out 2,000 communications when maybe 600 or 700 of those are irrelevant, right? Target the right people, right? And then bring it down to your employee level. Make sure that if you're putting 2, 3, 4, 5 people in front of them every day to reach out to, that those people are actually going to turn into a car sale, right? And it's relevant to them, right?
Do you want to hear something really interesting? So I was having a conversation with a dealer and I was going through their V Auto look to book numbers, right? This is I love doing it, because I like to be able to put my nose into the things and stir the
Sure,
pot, right? That's my favorite thing to do.
sure,
So I go there and pull up the V Auto and let's see your look to book. Well, dealer appraised about 300 cars. The problem was their look to book ratio was 19%. Look to book ratio, I mean the win ratio out of those
right,
300 appraisals. And the general manager was bragging about it, saying, we live by appraising customers' cars. We're doing such a phenomenal job mining our database. And he says, what do you think based on what you see? I'm like, let me show you another Viato. So I just hide the name and pull up another dealership's Viato. And the same period of time, this dealership did appraise 150 cars, but their look to book ratio was 67%. And it's a real 67%, not BS. Because I'm like pretty strict with that when I come down. I
Sure.
check the incomplete appraisals and all that stuff. So
Right.
I make sure it's not garbage in, garbage out. And other dealers, general manager made this comment. Says, you're bringing this up to me, but that dealership is not working hard enough. They don't appraise as many as I do it. And these two dealers were comparable in sizes, like they were same size
Sure.
dealerships, different markets. And then I said to the general manager, you're looking in a different way because that particular store is using a specific tool to target people who are in equity position that they're most likely to pull that out those people rather than wasting their time and just
Appraising everybody.
contacting every single person.
Sure.
And they don't have the manpower to do that to begin with. And the GM said, well, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like, yeah, work less, make more. That's the whole point of it, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
going
work
back to
smarter,
the
not harder, right? And that's another
exactly.
expression I learned from my
Yeah,
friends in my travels, right? But it makes a lot of sense, John, and it's that's also something that a lot of dealers are challenged with today, and they're focusing on service now, and they're looking at service for purchasing vehicles and also for selling vehicles, right? And that's another thing dealerships need to be careful on, is that if you're hitting on everybody every time they come into service on those two fronts, right? You're going to run them out. They're going to go elsewhere, like especially if they're not a good target, right? And so you have to be careful as a dealer. You have to put a process in place, but you have to make sure that it's clean, that it makes sense, that it hits the right people, right? So again, there's tools out there that can tell you who you should target at service, right? And that's how you take your data and make it more actionable, is not looking at, you look at the 50 appointments, but from those, I got 16 people that I want to either buy from or sell to tomorrow. That's who I'm concentrating on. The other ones just go to service. They just get a hello. I buy them a coffee if they want, right? So that's again, a more streamlined process, to your point, right? Appraise less vehicles, but appraise the right ones, the ones that are actually going to turn into deals, right? So that your staff, again, bring it down to the employees, but the customers, but also the employees. Imagine the running around on 150, 180 appraisals, right? And I'm sure that the guy, whoever's appraising the cars at the end of the day, is very tired, right? But
absolutely,
you're absolutely
100%.
right, John. Smarter, not harder, right?
You don't want to just go like a madman and says, I'm going to, like, my job is to appraise 500,000 cars every day. No, it's not. You like to be able to contact the customer at the right time, okay? And with the right message.
Yeah.
You don't want to tell someone who is upside down
Yeah,
$15,000 and say, hey,
sure.
I will be able to get you out of your car. And then you do all the appraisal process and the payment come up by $300 a month. They hate you. You do that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. That customer may change the brand because of you if you do
absolutely.
stuff like that.
And then and I think that's the challenge, is that dealers don't realize the level of, I don't want to call it knowledge, but the expectations consumers have, right? They expect, because it's such a high ticket item, they expect you to know where they're at on all those fronts: service, sales, F&I products, wherever they are today, right? And I think that's where dealerships need to go to, right? And make it more relevant for everybody, right? And I think if you do that, if your customer sees you as someone who cares enough to know about them, rather than wanting to sell a car outright, or having an event and we want to invite you, right? When you call people for very, very specific items, and I've been live with dealers doing it, right? Because I put my nose everywhere, and I do some coaching even on people who are scared of calling customers. And I'll pick up the phone if the dealer wants to sell somebody an extended warranty. Whatever they want me to do, I'll do it, right? But when you call a customer and you're very specific on why you're calling them, sometimes they're actually surprised. They're like, really? You know that? You know that it's going to cost me $1,800 at the end of my lease in 2.5 years because I'm exceeding my mileage right now. Wow. Okay, now you can talk to me. That customer is yours, right? And that's the kind of loyalty we need to build today, because that consumer is now the guy from 15 years ago who was at the dinner table who said, hey, my dealer called me because it was my birthday today. And everybody went, wow, right? Well, today it's my dealer figured out that I was going to bust my mileage, or that I was in a position to change for $18 less, or that I could upgrade my car in model for the same amount, right? Or I could switch to an EV for this much less, and that's what I was ready for. Right? That's when everybody around the table goes, wow, right? That's today.
Or think this way too. Let's say you bought a certified pre-owned car from a manufacturer, and sometimes these manufacturers do qualify you for loyalty rebates on a new car. Maybe your situation just changed, right? You were driving a Civic or a Elantra or a Corolla. Now you have a kid on the way. Well, you may need a RAV4 or a CRV or Tucson, right? You name it, depending on your situation or manufacturer. Maybe it's you hit them at the right time and said, "Hey, we can upgrade you," right? Too like it's all about providing that solution to the
absolutely.
customer.
And there's the, data also permits you to do that, right? Like, we consume third-party data, we consume behavioral data, we consume our own data from thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands, even millions of customers that we monitor, right? And that we consume that data and build patterns out of it. We look at purchase patterns from customers in the dealership's history, right? All those things also come into play into kind of predicting where a customer might be in his life, right? Or in his ownership cycle, right? To your point, is he shopping online for a big, 7-seater SUV and he's driving a 4-door sedan? Something's going on, right? And that kind of monitoring also helps dealers be more in front of the right customer with the right conversation, right? Or just a conversation if it's on behavioral, right? But being in connection with that consumer, right? Something happens and that data makes it actionable, and it actually turns into a task that gets executed at the dealership level, and that's what you want. Right. So that whole behavioral side is also the future of all of this. Right.
That's I appreciate for the answer, because I think this could be useful for any dealership out there in North America. So I'm coming to my final question to you. Again, based on your expertise and knowledge, where do you see the future of database mining, CRM, customer relationship management, loyalty? Could you give us some insights on that? Because I know you have access to tons of data. I'm sure you can't share everything, but could you give us some?
Well, it's
One feature.
interesting. Yeah, no, and it's not. There's no secrets in here, and it's not. It's I look at today's landscape. I look at where some of the technology is going, where some of the laws are going too, right? Because the U.S. and Canada is different, but I think that as big as the revolution was, 15, 20 years ago, about having tools that gave us that kind of follow-up relationship. So, a more of a calendar approach, or a set in time approach that really drove dealerships ROI, retention, all those metrics through the roof, right? Because all of a sudden now you didn't have just, Peter's, notebook that he kept to know when to follow up with customers, right? Or like, one of my salesmen, my dad's salesmen back in the day used to take out his November contracts from 4 years ago and go through them and call them, right? So I think as big as that revolution was, where CRMs help dealers build that follow up and that ecosystem of even after sale follow up. As big as that revolution was, the next revolution is going to be about interacting that relationship with the data, and bringing in all the different options of reaching out to a customer that there are today, right? It used to be in person and on the phone, then in came email. Now you have texting. On texting, you have 6 different platforms. You have a bunch of different ways of reaching out to your customers. So there's more options out there, but there's also more tools that give you more relevant reasons to reach out to your customers, right? And to me, that's the future. So not a time-based approach, but it has to have a layer of time-based, but it also has to have behavioral, moment in time, what's going on in that customer's life. So third-party data, behavioral data, AI that also can help interact with that customer and get them engaged for higher volume dealerships. To me, that's the future. But it's all about relevance. Nobody puts up with a general approach anymore. They're all not all telling you yet, but they all think it, right? Everybody's beyond that today because they get it from other industries, right? They get a personalized approach and a very marketed to approach from the top players in the world, right? Google, Amazon, all those guys, they retarget really well, right? They retarget well because they know what they're doing, because they consume your data, right? And they act upon it. They make it relevant, right? I think that's where dealerships need to go, and that's where the future is.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you that we got to start doing things a little bit more enhanced and
That's
more
it.
custom based. And rather than time based, we got to start focusing on event and behavior based, such as
Absolutely.
we got a car shortage now. Used car prices through the roof. Well, that means that customer's vehicle, which is currently at lease, is worth more money than
Yeah.
it should be right now. So that means you can take that customer from that car and put them in a brand new car a lot earlier than what you were
Yeah.
expected. So if you're just a
Absolutely.
CRM guy and put a target there 34 months to contact, you're going to miss the boat because that customer may go to a different dealership, same brand, or
Yep.
God forbid, they go to a
Another brand.
different
Yeah.
brand. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a problem.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much, John, right? Like, listen, I got and he might see this someday and he'll say I put him in the podcast, but my brother-in-law is like, I can get like $8,000 more than what my buyout is on my lease right now. Like, what should I do? I said, cash in, do something, find a car, buy it. If you can order and hold out, take advantage of it, right? And he's like 24 months or 26 months into 48 months, right?
But
So I think that's also the future, is that dealerships have to surround themselves with tools that are able to pivot, right? And the way tools are built today, a more modern platform of of a what do you call it, a platform build, a more modern structure, is able to pivot quickly, right? So we've pivoted numerous times over the past 24 months because of COVID for our dealers.
yeah,
Hey, you guys should have this. Hey, you should, we were doing this, but now we need to do this. We've actually grown within the demand of our dealerships because they've needed to pivot, right? Up until 12 months ago, we didn't have, a built-in buyback template. Now it's part of our operations because everybody's sending out buybacks, right? We've just built in factory order, right? Everybody's factory ordering, right? Well, not all tools can pivot that way and can really turn around and support their dealers quickly in a quicker changing market, right? And that's also the future, I think, is the providers out there, the stronger ones are going to be the ones that are going to be able to pivot with the market, adjust to what's going on in the market, and really be a partner to their dealers rather than a fixed in stone kind of solution.
because time base is fixed. Okay, 36 months we're gonna do this, 18 months we're gonna do this, whatever we're gonna do this. What
Yeah.
if the situation
Market's too
changes?
volatile today to just rely on that. It's too volatile, too much things going on, right?
And
And there's so much more than just selling a car around the relationship today, right? And so much more than just selling a car and service. There's a whole bunch of things you can sell within that 5 years to that customer from your dealership, above and beyond just sales and service, right? So that's the other part that I think the future is going to bring, is now we can kind of figure out when they want to buy a car, right? The next steps is figuring out all the rest. When they need service, when they need an F&I product, when they have a job change that brings a credit change, or they buy a car or a house and credit's going to change. I think the more we can kind of bring in that data over the next 5 to 10 years will be very interesting to see how much we will actually know about our customers before interacting with them.
yeah, it's a very good saying, right? How much do we know about our customers before
Right.
we actually interact with them to make their life easier, rather than just make a typical telemarketing call to annoy them,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And
before
John,
I
you know what? We encourage dealers that, if you're a salesperson and you're using AutoAlert, let's say, we'll encourage you to refer to the customer that, hey, I'm looking at your profile here and I have access to a whole bunch of information, right? And the one thing that caught my eye is the fact that you've spent like $2,200 in the last 90 days on your car, right? Can we stop this? Can I help you today? Can I sell you a car? Because just so happens you can change for $8 less a month, right? So we didn't approach him on a car sale. We approached him on the fact that he's spending money on service because he's probably out of warranty. Cars needed brakes, cars needed tires, whatever, that third or fourth year you're in, you start spending a bit of money, right? That's the reason you call him. And the guy's like, oh, I hate spending that money, right? Well, sell him a car, right? And so I think that's also where we all need to go as dealers, right? To make sure that we're giving our employees the right tools to have the right conversations with customers, giving them more sales at the end of the day.
They used to say data is the new currency. I think today data is the most valuable currency. It's not the new currency anymore, but it's the most valuable currency, right? Nothing is
we
more
all know how to
valuable than
count it.
data.
Now we have to figure out what to do with it. And I think that's the space that's a lot of fun right now.
Well, that's really good. It's been absolute pleasure hosting you, Bertrand. I was looking forward to this. I'm sure a lot of the people, audience, were looking forward to this too. So before I wrap it up, any final stuff that you want to add? Contact details and all that good stuff. Could you share some
Hey, you know
final
what,
stuff?
John? Yeah, no, I'm not a last words kind of guy, but people can find me easily. Find yourself easily. Give me a call, whatever you want to talk about. I love discussing the car business. See a lot of my friends on this call too, supporting you and supporting us on this podcast. So I appreciate that a lot. And any dealer that's out there that needs to talk about the stuff we covered today is my pleasure. And God knows I like to have a conversation.
That's amazing. So what's the best way to reach you though? LinkedIn, email,
And
phone?
you can
What do you
reach me through
prefer?
LinkedIn, but my phone number is easily visible pretty much everywhere. So that's also accessible on LinkedIn if you do the contacts tab. And then we can do it that way.
That's good. Well, I thank everybody today, the audience. I thank Bertrand to join. I think it was a very good conversation and good stuff for dealers. Again, if you have any questions for Bertrand, reach him out. If you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy. But thank you for your time again, and see you guys next week. And if you want to watch and listen to the whole conversation, again, it's recorded in various places. You can do it on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. And if you just want to listen to this conversation in your car, you can listen to that in your favorite podcast place, such as Apple, Spotify, you name it. And again, thanks a lot and have a great day. Hope you guys will sell lots of cars this month.